Hello boys and girls, I am the Guide Knight and welcome to part 7 of my Godot Breakout tutorial. In the last episode, we created our first bricks, the green brick, which is harder to destroy, and the blue brick, which is normal. We also created our first easy level, which was manually edited by us, and the bricks were manually pasted there. So now we are going to create or try to create our first dynamic level so that we don't actually need to manually add the bricks. Before we proceed with that, let me first explain to you how this is gonna work. Maybe we will refine that further, I don't know, in the future episodes, but for now it is going to work like that. Let me just open GIMP here quickly. So we have our marvel my amazing drawing skills, guys. So we have our screen, right? This is our screen, and on the screen we have the places where the bricks can be. I'm not gonna draw all of them, maybe just a couple. And those bricks have coordinates, right? So if we get the X and Y axis, in this case, this is inverted, right? So basically, we're gonna start like this. This is increasing X and this is increasing Y. So this is 0, 0, this is 0, 1, and this is 0, 2, this is 1, 0, this is 2, 0, this is 1, 1, and so on. You get the point, right? So we would like to define rows and columns that those are our rows and those are our columns basically. And in each row and column, we would like to define if there will be a brick and what kind of brick there will be. For this, we're going to use a random function. So this is the way we're going to create our random level. So let's proceed, guys. So go to levels and create a new, well, not levels, we're just gonna create a scene, right? We want to go to scene, new scene, and then we are going to use, what are we going to use as a root? Maybe Node2D. For now, let's see. And let's call it dynamic level. In the dynamic level, we would like to have, maybe we can also add our background, right? We will try to, maybe the best way to do it is to just add a parallax background or maybe a sprite. Let's try with sprite, maybe it will just work. And we can adjust that later if we need be. So we go to backgrounds and the bear is there. Amazing, right? So make sure that you scale it down to your viewport. You can also enable snapping. I think it's enabled for me, but I was just too far away. So you can save that under levels, dynamic level. And then in our world, we can actually remove the easy level by deleting it and bringing it our dynamic level. Yeah. And maybe move it above everything else because we don't want like the bear to hide our player and stuff. So right now we have our first dynamic level with background. You can add the background also to the easy level if you want to, but we're going to proceed with the dynamic level for now. So let's create a script here. Just call it dynamic level GD. And what do we need here actually? We're gonna keep the ready function because we need it. And we are going to basically first define two constants, right? The constant will be the cell width. In our case, it is 96. And another constant, cell height, it's gonna be 32. Like the bricks are 32 by 96 in their dimensions. So I think that this is like describing one brick basically. And we are also going to, we can define, for instance, how many rows and columns we have, like export rows, and maybe, I don't know, start with 3 rows, export var, of course, var columns, start with. Let's see actually how many columns we can like put into our world so that we have the full length. So we go to the 2D here, and we can actually drag some bricks, not walls. We can actually drag some bricks. Let's say we drag the blue brick. And let's duplicate it, right? Duplicate it several times and see how many times we can fill it. I think it's 10, but it's better to be safe than sure. Not just kidding. Better to be safe than sure. It's actually better to be safe than sorry, but it's fine. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exactly. We have exactly 10 columns if you would like to fill in the whole screen. So let's go and make sure that the starting value for columns is 10. So in the, how are we going to initiate the bricks, right? Let's first try to instantiate only one brick, because right now we don't have any bricks in the game. So let's just try to do that. For this, we need to actually define another constant. Let's call it blue brick. Blue brick class, and do a preload. We're gonna preload the brick tscn file. This is basically the class, and then we can also do another constant with green brick, right? Green brick class, and we are going to do exactly the same for the green brick. And now let us try to instantiate one of those, right? We are going to do this by trying to create a variable, let's say blue brick. And this will be the instance of the blue brick class, right? Instance. And we also need to add it to the scene, right? So we need to make sure we add it. We can add it as a child of the dynamic level, so that's all right. And let's just add child, and then say blue brick. I don't need the second pair of braces here, brackets. Okay, and also what can we do? We can define the HP. We can make it. We can define like the position as well. Let's first see if it works. Like, okay, there's something wrong here. But if you let me just disable the sprite. I think that's actually the problem. I think it's adding it. Oh no, it's just there. You see, it's barely there. So what we need to actually is define the position, right? Another way we can fix that is going to the world and simply making sure that our dynamic level doesn't start at the top, but starts at the, like the coordinates for the dynamic level. In that case, when we add the brick, it will be actually in the correct position. We can now also try to change the position, but let's first create our loops, right? We need 2 loops, 2 for loops, and we iterate over the columns and over the rows, as shown before in the GIMP amazing illustration. So for a column in range 0 to columns, and then immediately we do for row in range 0 to rows, right? Okay, so this means that first the rows will be iterated, and then basically the columns will be iterated one by one. What we can do here is we can get our code, And well, first let me explain the range function, right? Let me see if I can actually control range. I don't know. Well, basically, what you can also do is you can search the online documentation of Godot, which can be found like under docs.godotengine.org. But usually here you find stuff about the actual engine and like 2D and 3D objects. And for the script, like this is part of the GD script, you can go to the gdscript.com. And for instance, there is a nice section about looping, and you can see different code examples. For this is looping from 0 to 7. If you do this, like with range 8. You can also specify a sub-range, so from 10 to 12. So the first one is inclusive, and the second one is actually exclusive. And you can also define the step value. So if you want 2, 4, 6, 8, you can do like from 2 to 9 with a step size of 2. You can also actually loop over characters and so on and so on. It's actually really nice to, you can take a look, and if you are not sure about some implementation detail, you can always check it online if you cannot find it in the here in the search help. So in our case, we're doing actually from 0 to columns, and we can actually do just that, right? We just saw that we don't need the start value always. The start value by default is 0. So okay, so what can we do now? If we do this, we are going to create basically 30 bricks, right? From 0 to 9 and from 0 to 2. We're going to create 30 bricks, and they're all going to be in the same location. So what we can do is try to change the location like that. So position X, the X position will be basically what will be our X position? The X position will be the row times cell width, right? So the first row it will be like 0 times 96, and then the second row to be 1 times 96 and so on. So this could actually work. And the Y position will be exactly the same, but for column, and then cell height. Okay, so let me start this and see. Okay, you already see that there was a small problem. It almost worked, but not entirely, right? Why? Because our rows and columns are swapped, right? So if you noticed before, I basically told you that the first thing that is going to be iterated is the columns. So we basically, if we want to have like more columns, we need to, wait, we're actually, never mind. Forget everything I said up to now. And the X position is actually the column, right? Because we're going column by column, and Y position row by row. Never mind. Okay, this almost worked as well. What seems to be the problem? It seems to be that we are actually not setting our values correctly. Like, so the column should be multiplied by the cell width, and the row should be multiplied by the cell height, right? And there we go. Now we have our first dynamic level. It's not very dynamic because it always is the same, right? But we can create a random variable and assign that to define our bricks, right? So let's do it. Like var random equals rand range from 0 to 1. Let me see if I can, I can see this here. It returns a float value from the start to the end position. Random range for any floating point value between from and to. I am not sure if those are inclusive or not, but it doesn't really matter, right? It's close enough to be approximation. So we can say like if, let's say random, the value we have is less than 0.3, we can do a pass, right? We don't want to have a brick there. Like in 30% of the time, we don't want to have a brick, but we would like to have a gap, right? And this way, this can be actually increment, we can set it dynamically maybe later on to see how easy the level is. Like if we do like else or elif random, we don't even need to have an else in that case because we're passing, but okay, anyway. Elif random less than 0.7. In that case, we would like to have our blue brick, right? And then in the other case, we just like have to have our red brick. Or why I keep saying red brick? It's the green brick. So green brick. We just need to change the blue brick to green brick. And now let's run it and see what happens. Okay, we have some red, some green, I don't know. Guys, I'm not colorblind, I swear. Some green and some blue bricks. But yeah, the code is not very clean, right? Why is that? Because, yeah, first of all, we didn't clean it up. That's usually the case. And second of all, we have those like, right? So what can we do is we can get the class here, and then we can do like init brick. And we're gonna add the brick, blue brick, and then the row and column, right? In that case, we can copy this and create our new function called init brick. It's going to receive a brick, and then it's going to receive a row and a column. So we can paste our code here. And we can copy this and put it in the else criteria, right? Like init brick. But not blue brick, just brick. And here not blue brick, just green brick. Okay, now if we run it again, should be exactly the same. And let me check if the values actually change. Like, oh yeah, I did that by mistake. But see there, the level is different. We can define how easy that is, right? So we can define the level of difficulty here. Let's say export var difficulty. And it can be, let's say, in some range, right? So we want our difficulty to be some sort of a number, right? But it would like to be in some sort of range. So it can be like in the range of 0 to let's say 1 to 5, for instance. Like this is easiest is 1, and the most difficult is 5. So we can export it, right? And let's say it's the easiest one at first, but you see that I can actually change it and set it to whatever. So I need to somehow define a bounded range for this. And in order to do that, I can look into the documentation on the Godot engine, and then there is the GDScript exports, introduction to exports. It's a very well-written documentation. So let's see if we can find something that defines a range. Okay, there is allow integer values from 0 to 20. That's already something, but the next one is actually what we need. Allow integer values from -10 to 20. So this is the start, and this is the end. So let me copy this, and I can use it in my, like I can say, okay, export var, and there's the difficulty, the name. Let's say it's 1. And I would like to also have it from 1 to 5, right? Now I have an integer from 1 to 5. I can click on it and change it from 1 to 5, but nothing more, which is exactly what I need. But right now we're not using the difficulties, so we can, how can we do that? Like we want to have more rows, right? We don't want to have more columns, because probably the columns we don't want to change. So let's say we can even make it a constant, right? But maybe if you're wacky or whatever, if you feel like funky, you can change that as well. But it's all right for now. So we say like, okay, rows is equal rows plus, I don't know, plus difficulty. Like +1, we have 4 rows in the easiest, and we will have basically 8 rows in the most difficult scenario. So if you only do that, we have like difficulty of 1 right now. Let's change it to 5, save it, and then we have more rows, right? But we would also like to change the gaps a little bit, because the gaps are, maybe that's the only thing we're going to change in this part, the gaps a little bit to adjust it. Let's say we define var minimal, I don't know, empty brick range. It's going to be 0.3 at first, and we're going to replace that. And how can we actually make sure that we have more basically empty bricks when it's less difficult, and less when it's more? So we can actually make it bigger, like 0.6, and then minus the difficulty. But the difficulty is right now is an integer, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we would like to have a float value here. So what we can do is difficulty divided by 10. But if we do only 10, we will see that we can actually bring the empty brick range. We'll see that basically it doesn't really matter, right? We are at difficulty 5, we have 0.6. I'm just gonna save with difficulty 1, and also we have 0.6. This is because this thing always is running it to 0. So we need a float here, right? We need a dot or dot 0. I think a dot 0, probably dot doesn't only work. In that case, we have 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. So it will be like from 0.1 to 0.5, this part of the expression. And this is 0.6. So the whole thing, let me add a comment here. The whole thing will be in the range from 0.5, okay, from 0.1 to 0.5, right? And when it's the easiest, so this is 0.1, it will be 0.5. When it's hardest, this will be 0.5, and the whole thing will be 0.1. So right now it is 0.5 because we have the easiest level, and we have a lot of empty spaces. But if we go to the dynamic world and change it to difficulty 5, we have much more bricks and a lot less empty spaces. You can actually also fine tune the amount of green bricks you have, because they are like, they have more lives. But yeah, so let's see if we can finally, as the final part of this episode, bring back our background, right? That's what we disabled at one point. So I'd like to see if I actually bring it back to it work. Ah, yeah, it worked. So the reason we were not seeing the brick was not because of the background, as I kind of suspected, but it was just because the position was weird and it was behind the wall. So that's it, guys. We didn't actually improve our brick creation. So we will make the brick a little bit more dynamic as well next time. And maybe we're gonna add some, I don't know, wind condition or something. I don't know. Let's stay tuned, and we'll see each other next episode, hopefully. So yeah, stay awesome, guys, and have fun. Bye-bye.